are at 20 Alpha in Hong Kong, and we have georg-i here with us talking about his track for the compilation released on Absurd TRAX. It's a compilation celebrating the anime serial experiments lain, and it's called Lain Oasis Online Club Cyberia. So here we are with georg-i. Mm-hmm. Please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for calling me georg-i. I realize that my name looks like georg-i, but it is georg-i, and that's my fault, you know. But it's a running bit that I'm going to have to deal with forever now, probably, until I either change my name or just change it to double E. But yeah, I'm georg-i. I live in Bristol. I got invited to do the compilation through Anlin on Instagram, as I was posting stories about. I went through this phase of like, whenever I was working on something, I'd post like a video of myself in the studio, and my desktop background would always be a picture of Lain. Well, it'd be a moving background of Lain of some description. And Anlin messaged me, showed me the first compilation and the first website, and I was very flattered and very excited to be invited. So yeah, and here we are. All when was that? Do you remember?
It was maybe late 2023, something like that, or maybe early 2024.
Oh, right. Yeah, you asked me, and then in 2 days or 3 days, we were looking at the messages. It was like 3 days, and like the core of the way the song sounded, like when the finished song was almost done.
Yeah. Which
is crazy for me. Because I'm quite a slow worker generally, but I was very, very excited, clearly. So, yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me for this interview.
Thank you for the track. It's, it's a banger.
It's my pleasure.
So tell me how and when you got into the anime.
So, an old friend showed me Lain a long, long time ago. And I can't remember precisely when it was, but I watched it once and was utterly sold, and I went through a stage of, rewatching it quite a bit. And then, I don't know, it kind of like disappeared from my life a little bit, but I was always still like repping it on my like desktop or whatever. But it must have been like 4 years ago, 5. I think it was pre-COVID actually that I discovered it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I kind of utterly fell in love with it, and I rewatched it very recently, and now done like a watch party with my friend, a different friend online, and we watched through the series again. I was like, yeah, it's still as good as I remember it being. I still love it just as much as I did then.
So do you remember how you felt the first time after you watched it for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, I was like I guess not to try and spoil it too much, but the series is incredibly sad. Like there's like some elements of Lain which is very relatable, like wanting to like take yourself from people's memories to like not, I don't know. It's like kind of comforting at the end as well, because even though the ending is sad, it's just in some respects, Lain is somewhat happy compared to what the ending could have been, where she disappears completely.
So yeah, let's talk about the music in the anime actually. Mm-hmm. Like which music, which soundtrack left like a lasting impression on you?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer this honestly because it's slightly embarrassing, but like the obviously the main thing that I took away from the series initially was the theme, Duvet by Boa, and I was utterly obsessed with it. It was in my head ad nauseum like for the weeks after. I was just hearing it everywhere I went, and the rest of the things that I took away from the series initially was just like the atmosphere of everything that was in like the series. So like the hum of the telephone wires as the series progresses, there's like parts of it where they start like harmonizing with each other and stuff. I was like, my brain was totally lit up by all of that sort of thing. I was mainly focusing on that, and like also they had like this really cool tendency to use modulation effects on like the crowds and different sounds in general to make it, it's from the 90s, to make it sound more futuristic. It's like
oh, you mean the flanger thing?
the flanger, yeah. I think it's a flanger.
Yeah.
I always get confused about the different modulation. I mean, they're all like based on delays, but my brain can't contain them all. But yeah, the flanging on those types of effects, and I use them quite a bit. So just like hearing them very obviously being used, because normally like in modern cinema and modern series, it might be more meshed into everything. But with Lain, it was just like on this, like at the very front of the sound, and I always felt that was like really charming for me.
Yeah.
But like past that, none of this, I didn't really notice much of like the rest of the music, which is the embarrassing part of it, because I feel like I should have, and like I actually like discovered more of like the other themes and stuff through the compilation. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Well, basically, when we pitched the idea to you, we were saying like, could you make a track that you think you would play, that would be played at Club Cyberia, or you would play at Club Cyberia, that kind of thing. When I asked you to do something for Club Cyberia, like what's your, like, did you think about like the club at all, like the Club Cyberia? What would you imagine it to be? Yeah.
I think like,
what kind of place?
It's in the 90s. It probably would be like 90s like techno or like progressive stuff, probably. Like the more euphoria stuff, like the prog house and that sort of thing. Like, I guess big beat as well, which is kind of closer to what I made, I guess, in some ways. Not really, but I use a breakbeat in my tune and those. But yeah, I think actually no, like breaks and like 90s breaks and big beat and stuff is definitely what I would imagine being played in Club Cyberia. I mean, there's literally a big beat remix of Boa on the remix album, which I love dearly. So I think it's called the Siberia mix, literally the one that I like. Yeah. When I was writing my song, though, I don't think I was like necessarily thinking about the placement in the club, but I think in retrospect, I could imagine my song being played there. I think it would be. I'm imagining the scene in, is it the second episode where Lain is in the gun?
The shooting.
Leave me out of it. Leave me out of it. Leave me out of it.
No matter where you are, everyone is always connected.
Yeah, I imagine the breakdown of my song happening whilst that face-off is happening, and she's like having her moment of like panic, and he's got the gun pointed at her. That would be intense as hell.
Yeah, this is actually, I could imagine that. Let's talk about the track itself. So what's the writing process like? How did you start making it?
So the way that I started with the track was actually with a specific scene. So there was a scene in the second to last episode I didn't remember, like at the time when you asked me, I didn't remember which episode it was. I thought it was actually in the last episode.
I think it's layer 12. I looked it up later. Yeah.
It is the second to last episode.
Yeah.
But like, it still stuck out in my mind, even though it was way later on than when I wrote the song. I just remembered the scene where Arisu confronts Lain in her room, and just giving me like goosebumps now. Actually, like it's such an emotional scene, and so I was like, I want to use that one, that scene. I'm going to sample that scene, and sort of like embody the sort of like anxiety that Arisu's experiencing in that moment, and everything that she's like had following up to that moment, because she's like, no one remembers what's happened, and I'm like essentially being gaslit by everyone, not on purpose, but yeah. So I started off with that, and I, through various means, manipulated the vocals and stuff in that track to make it into this sort of like collage of jittering vocals and like tension and anxiety, and then so that's where I started specifically with that vocal and making all those sounds, and then I started working it into the shape of a track after that, basically.
Well, I actually have that sound on my drive, so we could actually play that sound.
Right.
Yeah.
In the excitement of writing, I was sending the stems to Anlin, and did you open a night with it?
What?
Or do you start?
Yeah. I opened like a set with it. Yeah, like it's like a jungle set, and with this.
the stem.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. Wait, could you? Oh, this.
Yeah. It will. There we go.
Yeah, so that's the.
Yeah, so
that's the stem.
Basically, the process that I'm doing there is like, I'm using a very specific granulator from this third-party program called Glitch Lab, who's made by this. I found it because of Metrist, but Giorgio San Cristoforo. He has this thing called Glitch Lab, and it is the craziest thing to look at. When I was telling you about it, it looks like, when you open it, it looks like a Navi looks. It's got like every single thing is like a different pop-up. Like it looks very like
it's like a control panel on like a spaceship, something like
that.
Yeah,
like more so than other DAW related things even.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was just like this granulator. I'm just like changing a few of the things within there, and you can kind of either grind the sound together, or you can like really spread them apart. But it ends up being this sort of like a hysteria inducing with the tone, because the scene is already really anxious anyway, so it was basically perfect for building the atmosphere of stress and tension, to then have the build up in the breakdown and then it land at the end of it. Yeah, it was like loads of fun. And then the rest of the track is me layering different either noise from a different thing from the same person who made Glitch Lab, and then also...
Oh, you mean like bento?
Yeah, it's called bento. which is like a different program which is made to be like a Japanese noise box, like from the noise scene in Japan, I guess. I don't know anything about that scene, but I think that's in the description. And it's very unruly. I basically just went through the different presets and worked out roughly what was happening, and then just made a bunch of sounds and worked that in. And obviously it's very noisy and feedbacky sounding. And then I did the other thing that I really like doing, which is drums. Lots of drums. I think a part of me becoming like closer to the producer that I am now is like letting myself experiment with breaks more and having fun with breaks. And a large part of that was me being worried that like if I'm using breaks, it might not feel or sound original to some respect. And it was kind of like a big unlock where I was like, oh no, I can use breaks, but like as long as I'm like doing it in a way where it is making, you know, I'm using it as a tool within my song. Like as long as it's not sounding like jungle revivalism, which is kind of like even though I like parts of that, I didn't want to be that type of artist necessarily. But yeah, I mean the breaks in this track is like 2 breaks specifically from an old jungle sample pack. The one's called the Boo Worm Break, and the other one's called Desire Break. And quite simple, like Ableton just has this functionality. It's called beats, and you can make it so it splits up your beat, your break, your sample into different sections, and you can either have it go back and forth through that, but you can also just make it play once through each segment, and you can get these really like tight versions of the specific sounds. And it still maintains the groove of the break, but you can hone in on different things, and I do that quite a lot now. I used it with the Desire break basically. That is like the main break. I made a tight version of it using the beats functionality. I then broke that up into little parts and arranged it in a way where it felt like a groove that I wanted rather than just like the original break, while still maintaining some of the feel of the original break without it sounding too robotic basically. But you get the aesthetic of the break, the feel of it, but it's baked into... Then I added my own kick drum, I added my own snare, I added an additional hi-hat, but yeah, this is how I might use a break in a track basically. Yeah, the beats functionality it's fun. So that's the basis of how I went through the track, and obviously the breakdown itself is its own level of chaos that I decided to do. It was never intended to be that frantic, but I kind of got it, happily let myself get away from myself a bit. This section is kind of inspired by Hackney Parrot by Tesla, which is like obviously a foundational tune for, you know, the early parts of my, like when I was in uni basically, a track that I loved. And I was like, what if it was like Hackney Parrot, but it just never, it didn't stop. So I went with this sort of like Hackney Parrot, like looping thing. And then I was like, but what if it was also like a shepherd's tone where it feels like it's rising forever? And then I just was like, yeah, but what if I just never like gave anyone any moment to kind of realize where the one is anymore, and they get lost until I let them not be lost anymore. And yeah, it ended up being very long and very fun, like playing the breakdown in the club and watching people kind of realize what's happening slowly. They're like, oh, okay, we're going to be here for a while, is like some of the most fun in the, you know, being able to see my own song being played in front of people. It's like the most fun. But yeah, the breakdown is like very simple really. It's just like a part of the vocal looped, you know, one of the processes of the vocal looping, the breaks looping, and then eventually I add some anchor points with some little pings towards the end of it. I was very tempted to have none of them, basically, to have no anchor points, but eventually I think my friend I basically was like, you need to put anchor points in somewhere, George.
So you mentioned the soundtracks.
Mm-hmm.
You mean I mean the atmospheric sounds from lain. And did you use any of the sounds? And what are those sounds? And how did you process the sounds?
Mm-hmm.
And where did you use it in the track?
One of the things that my brain would always get locked into was the hum from the telephone wires. I definitely use those a few times. There's like parts of the intro where it's layered as, sort of to make it thicker. But then I also, the big ravey, I call them like rave stabs, or like the rave synth basically, is just the hum from the telephone wires put into a sampler, and then I used different pitch shifting and formant shifting and distortion to make it sound like the weird sound it is, in the track. There are parts where I use the sound of like wires, like being there's like a scene where lain confronts God, and like there's like sounds of like the wires like explode, like live telephone wires like exploding onto like the ground. Another sound that I really enjoyed making is these sort of it feels like it's simulating wires breaking as well. To me, for some reason, that's kind of how my brain, it's like the zingy nature of the sound. Is also made with another part of Glitch Labs. Specifically, the plugin part is called Fluffy Clouds, which is funny because it does not sound like Fluffy Clouds, even a little bit. And it's very difficult to understand, for me to describe what it's doing. It like creates like 20 layers of a sound. I was recording the scene into it, and then just like flicking through the scene, and it was like creating 20 layers of it, and it ends up having like this weird effect. I don't really understand specifically what it's doing, which is fun. It's definitely loads of fun to play in the club. So and it's a fun, when I play it, I tend to use it as like a tool of changing tempos as well. So when the breakdown is happening, I will, if I'm playing at 150 and I want to play 170, as the breakdown is doing the thing, I will push it up to 170. Mm-hmm. So by the end of the breakdown, it's like, oh, we're playing drum and bass now. Mm-hmm. Because it's a break that works.